Hello and welcome back, arcade enthusiasts and electronics enthusiasts. Here I have a Gyruss set on the bench. And the first thing I notice about this one is, does this one actually have an EEPROM that goes in this spot? Or is this a test EEPROM, or what's going on here? I don't know what's up with that. But we have, that one doesn't look like it's in right. It looks weird. Okay. Oh, Konami trying to be sneaky by scratching off all of the part numbers. They're trying to be sneaky. I just don't understand why they did that with RAM chips as well. It's weird. Alright, well, let me get my Konami harness out. Let's hook this thing up and see what we get. And I'm going to figure out what's going on with this. I don't think this is supposed to be here. I'm going to just pull up pictures of a Gyruss set, and I don't think this is supposed to be here, so let me do that. Okay, so I actually looked up one of my previous repair videos, and yeah, this is not populated. So I just pulled that EEPROM out, got it hooked up. It did not come with an interconnect cable, so of course I have those, so I did that. Hooked this thing up. Just set my voltages, made sure my voltages are good. I got a good 5 volts over here, 5 volts over here. And it's not doing anything. It's locked up. So obviously a good place to start would be to throw the Fluke on this thing. And I believe that somebody pulled this and replaced this Z80. So I'll have to check that work. But other than that, it's just making a popping sound. Yeah, that's all it's doing, so. Just locked up. Bunch of H's. Okay. Well, let's see what this thing's doing. Let's see if we can talk to these EEPROMs, make sure these things, that one had a folded leg, so maybe I'll just pull these things out and make sure the legs aren't folded. I'll do a little inspection. That's what I need to do. Alright, I'll take care of all of that. And this one looks like it's not fully seated, so see that? Alright, I'll be back. Okay, so I realized this might be some kind of a diagnostic ROM. So I put it back in and fired this thing up, and it's the same thing. It's just not doing anything. It's not running. So I think I will do what I was going to do and put the Fluke on this thing and see what it tells me. I just printed off some memory stuff, so we'll go ahead and see what it says. Okay, I was doing a little process of elimination, and I started probing around on a lot of the decoding stuff to get to these RAMs that I'm trying to access. And I noticed that they were not being activated, and the 139s were not being activated. And I traced, not that one, but this one right here. I traced the enable pin 15. See, this guy enables these That enables 1E, which is the buffer back to the CPU. And the write enable for the 128s, or the 2128, the 3 RAMs up in the corner. But that enable comes from this 501 chip. And I noticed that there was some floating lines on this guy, so I removed it and put it back in. And got those things being enabled. And I'm getting more business here. You can see it's kind of dancing around. The H's are all dancing. But if I still probe on this guy right here, the ground pin, this is in the socket itself. This is the ground from the socket, not the pin. Not the pin on the chip. You see the socket is ground, right? Now if I come back over here and I move my probe to the chip itself, you see this nonsense? It's a floating line. This socket is no good. I can actually ground it, but it's still, something's just not right with this socket. So I definitely need to replace this socket. And I think what I'm going to do is some maintenance on this board. All of these types of chips, the ROMs are okay, they go down into these sockets okay, but these sockets are not good for these types of chips. So I'm going to go ahead and do some maintenance on this board with these sockets and clean these chips up, clean the legs on the chips, and then we'll come back and move forward once we have some good connections. Alright, I went through and looked under the microscope into all of the sockets. The only one that really looked bad to me was that one in question. It has a little corrosion on that ground pin. And what I did was I sprayed all of the sockets with alcohol and I scrubbed them with this. And then with the air compressor, I blew them all out. And they all look good now, except for that one still just has corrosion on that pin. So I am going to replace this socket, and I think the rest of them should be fine because they look okay. They still got their nice silver appearance. And I'll brush them with some of that electronics lubricant and basically an oil to keep them from corroding. But I am going to replace this one. And I got the gun out. Replace the one, condition the rest of them, and see where we're at. Okay, we're back together and it's kind of working. Not quite. Now I believe it's working. It doesn't have blue. This socket's no good. If I tweak it, it'll run. Maybe. Yeah, it's stuck there now. I could tell this socket, they replaced this socket, and I could tell that they put a, whatchamacallit, one of those high score save kits in it or something, because this thing will just fall right into this socket. Let's restart this thing. And back on. Not running. I'm going to go ahead and kind of mess with this. See, now I've tweaked it and it's running. There's no blue. I'll let go of the Z80 and it freaks out. So I'm going to have to replace this socket. Okay, I did fix this issue. This Z80's legs were kind of, some of them were just needed to be fixed. So I actually fixed this Z80's legs and I kind of pulled them out a little bit. And it's running now. It's not that this doesn't have blue. This thing just doesn't have any sprites. And that is probably these RAM. So that would be my guess. Okay, I'm taking a peek at these RAM here. First thing I did is just get the old logic probe out and probe the chip selects and the chip enable. So there's two. This one's good. It's pulsing on every one of these. But pin 10 is the other enable, and it's always high on every one of these. I'm waiting for it. Now it's actually gameplay screen, so there should be sprite data being written into here. Pin 10 isn't doing anything. So I got the schematic out, and I want to look at pin 10 on those RAMs and see what exactly is that. Pin 10 on the 2114s, which are these guys right here. Pin 10 is the read-write line, and Y-write, Y-write and X-write, Y and X-write. And that comes from up here, which is a 139. 15A. So let's look at 15A. See if this thing's doing what it's supposed to. It's right here. That's not enabled. That's not going to do anything. All the outputs should be high all the time. And they are. High all the time. Over here we have same thing. No enable. So outputs will be high all the time. Alright, well, that is being enabled. You can see (18C). Let's look at 18C. 13 and 12 out to 11. 18C. It's going to be high all the time. And it is. What is this one? This is 13, 12. Pin 12. Pin 12 comes from this 138 at 19C. Let's take a look at 19C. It's a 138. That's this guy right here. It's not hot. Okay, we have a 3-bit address. So it looks like it's always addressing 7111. Does that ever change? I'm going to wait till the gameplay screen. Okay, we're at gameplay screen and this isn't doing anything. It is enabling, so 7 should be flashing. And it is, this guy right here. And the rest of them should be high. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that looks like it's working. What are these A, B, and C inputs on that thing? this guy right here, the A, B, and C inputs come from this 244 at 19F. Let's take a quick look at the 244 at 19F. 19F, that's this guy, 244. It's enabled always. So let's look at the inputs. The input is high all the time. Why is the input high all the time? High all the time. In. All of the inputs are always high. So all of the outputs will be high. Out, 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 out. Yeah. Alright, we're not getting anything going on here. So I know all of those inputs to these come from the Konami one. See this guy right here? That's the Konami one. So let's look at its control signals, which are 17 and 15 are the 1.5 megahertz signals. 17 and 15. Here's 20. 19. 18. Here's 17. 16, 15. Okay. And notice I'm probing on both the pin of the socket and the pin of the chip and making sure that it's getting to the pin through the socket. And it is. So we have those control lines. Now let's check out pins 11, 14, and 16. Here's 20. That's not 20. That's 21. This is a 42 pin chip. I got to redo that. This is 21, 20, 19, 18, 17, 16, 15 is right here. So 15 and 17. And then we have, this is 16, this is 14, 13, 12, 11. So those are the control signals. I think 19 is reset, so we can check 19, 21, 20, 19 is high, reset is high, so that's good. 13 looks like it's putting out the read-write signal. 18 and 27 look like they need to be grounded, so 21, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. Twenty-two, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. What is going on here? There's that 27 or 21? Yeah, 27 looks like it's either grounded or something. How about 13? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Always high. This Konami one isn't doing anything. 21, 20. 20 is grounded. No, it's not. 20. 19. 18 is supposed to be grounded. There it goes. I need to get my, I'm going to get the scope to look at those ground, to look at this. I need to see what is going on with this a little closer. Okay, so, progress. What I did was I put my probe on pin 13, which is the read-write line, and watched the screen, and I flipped the switch and turned it on, and it'll go right, will go low, so it is trying to write into these RAMs. And I looked at the addresses here, and when this goes low, it will try writing to address. So this is working, which is good. My guess is these RAM, and I think this was my initial thought, I think there's RAM that's bad up here. So, yep, that's what I believe. I don't think this is an issue, probably. I mean, it could be. You could have a bad ROM, because this does, that ROM is right here, which is the data that gets written into these RAM. So, I mean, that could be, I mean, it could be. I doubt it. I bet it's the RAM. I see sparklies and stuff. It just looks like it's bad RAM up here. So, alright, cool. That's what I think it is. Okay, very interesting. I replaced all 4 of these RAMs because they were all bad. I tested every one of them and they all tested bad. I replaced this socket right here. That was the one that was in the board. This one is much better now. It really grabs the chip. But I ran the thing and you can see it's doing the same thing. Apparently this doesn't want to run it, but it looks the same. So we don't only have RAM issues over here, I have RAM issues over here as well. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to pull these 3 RAM out of the board and check that out. Well, surprisingly enough, I pulled all of these and they all tested good. So I moved to this guy right here, this 082 custom, and I just grabbed one off of a super basketball board that I have here, and it's looking like that's what it is. I can do my RAM checks now. Yeah, here's the one that came out of this board. Unfortunately. Yeah. I'm going to continue to do checks and I'll be back. But it's looking like it's a custom. Okay, I have found another bad socket. It's this one right here. And that takes the sprite data from these four guys right here as inputs to this, it looks like. And there's a lot of bad pins. What you can do, if you've got fine point, I'm going to turn this off. Let me turn the air off. If you've got fine point probes, you see that? I'm going to turn this off too. Turn the little scope off. You can put one of the leads up on the leg, and then the other lead you can actually touch the leg of the socket, right? And just go up. Just touching the two legs. Leg of the socket and leg of the chip. See, there's one bad one. See? There's a bad pin, and that's a data line. That's an input to that. And then on the other side, that's ground. Ground is bad. Yep. There's another one. So that's 14, 13, 12 is also bad. There's a lot of bad legs on this. There's another one. This socket's terrible. What I'm going to do is I have to replace all these sockets. They all suck. They're all garbage. So that's a lot of maintenance to have to do, but it has to be done. These sockets are just no good. So I'm going to replace any of these sockets that a custom chip is in. So I'm going to replace this one. I'll replace that one, of course. These two, this one, and this one. I'm going to go through and replace those sockets. The EPROMs have longer, more sturdy legs, and they make better contact. They go deeper into that socket and they make better contact. These sockets are not good for these types of chips. So this one's terrible. The ground isn't even connected, so that is going to be the problem. Because I've probed around onto chips and I can't find anything bad, and then I just got to I was like, well, maybe I have bad connections. I don't know. So I started probing some of the sockets, and I got to this one, and this one's terrible. So for future stability of this thing, I'm going to replace all of the sockets that customs go into. All right, and new socket. Both new. 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 And new. I replaced all those sockets. And cleaned up the board really good. It's still a little damp from alcohol. And it won't even look like we've been doing this. So let's go ahead and hook this thing up. It should work. Okay, we are hooked up. One last polarity check. Pin 1. Notch. Notches. Notch. Pin 1. Notch. Notch. Pin 1. Pin 1. And one thing that I noticed as well was when I received this board, these were in flip-flopped. Number 10 was up here. So they had 10, 9, 8, 7. And I looked at one of my previous repairs, and it was obviously 7, 8, 9, and 10. So I think these were in backwards when I received it. I think they were in upside down. upside down, like 10 being up here and 7 being down here. So that's how they were when I got them. So I've put it to where how it was in my previous repair video, because I wasn't sure when I was checking signatures on these ROMs. They didn't come out to the positions that I was expecting them to. So I looked at a previous repair of mine, and this is how these were in the board, 7 to 10. So that's how I'm going to start with them, 7 to 10. Remember, all of these RAMs were bad. Every one of these RAMs tested bad in my Inquisitor. These ones were okay. So we have new sockets now. Connections are not a problem, not an issue. So let's go ahead and fire it up. And hopefully our sprites are correct. And there they are. It's looking good. This thing has problems with the inputs doing on their own. So there's something wrong with the soundboard now. The inputs. It's automatically starting a game. Look at that. It's shooting on its own. Yeah, so there is something up. But that's good. At least we got this settled. Now we have an input issue up here, so we'll have to go through these 153s and see what is happening up there. Sound works good. I've noticed already. Yeah. It just keeps starting the game over and over and over again. See that? Coin, coin, coin. Yeah, there's something going on up here in the input section. So we'll look into that next. See, it just started a game on its own. I'll turn the volume down. Alrighty, next thing we'll do is look at this board. This should be an easy fix. I'm going to look at these 153s. I bet you there's just bad 153 up here. We'll see. We look at the schematic, and we look at the soundboard schematic. You have all of these 153s where the inputs come in, and they go to the main CPU on the other board. See this? D0 through D7, pins 17 through 10. So if we look at this, this is where it's interfaced. There's pins 17 through 10, the data bits. And it's a 245, and they're passed through this 245 to signals 101 through 108, which are up here. And they're basically going through this back to the CPU. So this 501 chip has to be like a buffer, a bidirectional buffer. So I'm kind of thinking it might be that chip, that 245. Because if I had one jumped on there, and it was getting warm. And it kind of does a lot of nonsense if I don't jump it. See, it's just kind of going crazy. It's in cocktail mode too. That's weird. See, coin, 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 crazy coin. It's just going nuts. If I jump this over here, it settles down. Just kind of hold it there. See, it's not going crazy. See, it is not going nuts. It might coin up or something here in a second, but it's not really doing much. Now I'll go ahead and remove this. See, now it'll start its nonsense. See? So I'm going to go ahead and pull. You know what? I'm going to look at this thing. I'll get the little scope out and take a look at this and see what it's looking like. Yeah, I went big scope instead, and I'm actually analyzing it. And this thing makes no sense. For the most part, it's always enabled. Every now and again it'll disable. But when it's enabled, these should match. And as you can see, it's all over the place. Just to make sure my analyzer was working correctly, I moved this down to this 245 right here, and it was fine. This 245 is just doing whatever it wants to do. Yeah, it's weird. So I'm going to have to replace that 245, and that should fix this. We're back together. I replaced that guy. And strangely enough, this chip that I removed, even though we looked at it and it looked clearly flaky, will test good in this thing. $245. Let's go to says okay. I want to take this in and test it on my better tester, because this thing is not flaking out anymore. Coin. I did turn the volume up, you can see. One player start. No more shooting on its own. Yeah, the guy's not moving on his own anymore. Yeah. One more time, one more life. Let's take this 245, this Fujitsu 245 that this thing says is good, that I pulled out of that board, and I want to use my other tester that I have to test this thing. And let's see what happens. We're going in the house. We're going into the mainland. All right, I got that 245 in my TL8662-Plus. And I actually made some of my own parameters with high impedance, because the default file did not have high impedance stated. So I made my own, and this thing works. I can sit here and hit it over and over, and it says testing normal. Who knows? Very strange. Anyway, yeah, let's get back out to the board and play a game, and I don't know. I have no explanation for that. But we saw it. We saw it was acting funny. So who knows? But yeah, maybe under load, maybe loaded down with current going through it constantly. Maybe it just flakes it out. I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, let's get out and play some Gyruss. All right. When I last left you on Gyruss, we were testing that 245 and it was testing good. I actually put the 245 back in the board, the Fujitsu one, and it's absolutely fine. So please deposit coin. What was that noise all about? Anyway, yeah, this thing, you know what? I'm going to turn it off. I'm going to replace this anyway. We're going to go with a brand new Tejas Instruments 245. See you later. Yeah. Now, when I left you and we were testing that chip and it was testing good and everything, I don't know. I mean, that was weird. Maybe I wasn't getting on it good with my clip. Maybe the chip had a black spot on it or something. I wasn't making a good contact. I don't know, because I put it on this one and it worked fine, and it did not work on this one, yet the thing tested good. My guess is it had to have been a connection fail. And anyway, what I found was after I left this thing on for a little while, I went inside, came back out, and it was dead. So I was like, oh great, here we go again. So what I did was I turned it on. I came back out after a while, took a break from it, came back out, turned it on, and it was just locked up dead. So I started probing around on the thing, and I came to this custom chip, and the ground pin was floating. It was in the socket and everything, and the socket is good. It's a new socket, but the ground pin was floating. What I noticed was all of these customs that are like this one, and this one, all had random black legs. And this one just so happened to have a black covered ground leg. So what I had to do was what I don't like to do, but in this case, there's no choice. I had to take a super fine grit, like 400 grit sandpaper, and just rub it on these legs to get that black off of them. And then put them back in the sockets, and now it's fine. So, yeah, just bad connections. And then these things were in backwards, remember. Number 10 was up here and 7 was down here when I got this board set. All 4 of these RAMs were bad. I pulled and tested these RAMs and they're fine. I replaced all of the custom chip sockets. I replaced this Z80 socket because it was like somebody had stuck a high score save kit or something in here, and the socket did not want to grip the chip. So I replaced that. Replaced this socket. Didn't have to do anything to the soundboard. And by golly, that's about it. Yeah. So yeah, it's looking solid now, so let's go ahead and set up and play a game. Okay, it's Gyruss time. Let's play some Gyruss. Dang it! Well, that was quick. Cool. All right. It's looking good. Lots of maintenance on this board set. It was needed. All right. Well, yeah, that must be normal, I guess. Push start button, one player only. It just coined up all by itself. This baby just coined up all on its own. Okay. So I wasn't hearing things before. So we've got, I think there's still an issue up here. So I'm going to look at the schematic, find out where the coin input is. As I think there's something fishy going on one of those. So I'll be back. All right. I probed these 153s and I don't see anything that looks funny right off the bat. That really does not mean anything. All it means is nothing's floating, nothing, none of the inputs are being pulled low by a bad cap or anything like that. So what I've done is disconnected this board from this board. And how you do that is remove that 245. That removes the data bits from this that removes the inputs and the data. This thing talks to this board for music cues and stuff and sound cues, and then it reads input data through that 245. So removing that and just letting it run, and it's on free play. It's showing free play because I guess it's reading everything as on, even though it's not set to free play. See that? Yeah. So if this thing starts playing by itself, which is what it was doing, then I know it's this board because it's disconnected from the inputs. But it's been running for a little bit and it's not flaking out at all. And the fact that it read all of these as being on these dip switches, it's reading them as on, even though they're off. So it's reading it as free play. So I think this board is fine. I think the problem is on this board. And of course I have the schematic right here and I can go through it. And number one is to look at these guys and see how they look under analysis. And then other circuitry too, I mean there's 367s up here. When this is trying to read these, is something interfering with it, we'll have to just go through it. But it's not starting on its own. It's not playing no games. Nothing like that. So, so far so good. It could be a timing issue with selecting in enabling these and what it's selecting and stuff like that. It could just be all wacky. There's something on this board, it looks like, because it's not resetting. It's not restarting by itself. It's just staying in attract mode. So, okay, excellent. So tomorrow when I get back to this, I will start looking at this board. We almost had it. We almost were done, but yeah. I noticed this thing coined up on its own. I was like, this thing just coined up all by itself. And then it would start a game all by itself. So there's something flaky on here. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. Okay, Gyruss. Since this is a kind of a random issue, I removed all of these 153s right here. 253s actually. And replaced them. It is 151, no, 11. It is 11:51. I turned the camera off there for some reason. So it's just before noon. And what I've done is put a score on the board, 35,600. So we have one up 35,600, high score 35,600, 0 credits. So if I come back and there's either a credit on this thing, or if there's 0 credits but one up is 0 points, I will have known that this thing has credited up and started all by itself. So it should be in this exact same state when I come back to check on this. I'm going to leave it for about 3 hours. And then we'll come back and verify that it did not start on its own. So, yeah. It's been on for, I don't know, about 10 minutes maybe. And when I came out this morning and started on this, I turned it on and it did. It coined up by itself after just a few minutes of being on. So I believe this was the problem. These actually test good, but they're just flaky, I guess. You know, so yeah, so we're just replace those, and this thing shouldn't coin up or anything like that. So that's what I'll be looking out for. We'll come back in a few hours and see what it looks like, see what the screen says. If you remember, it was 11:51. Now it is 2:51. Exactly 3 hours later. Exactly 3 hours later, and we still have our 35,600 for the one up and high score. No coins. So this thing has had 0 misfires. Excellent. We are good to go. And yeah, these 253s that were in this row all test good in my reader, but they're just flaky somehow. So replacing these guys fixed that problem. And if we coin this thing up, and where exactly is... Kind of hard to play one-handed. Yeah. Awesome. That's it. We're going to call this one good to go. So, man alive, we did a lot to this one, didn't we? All of the custom sockets were replaced. All of the custom chips were cleaned. All 4 of the sprite RAMs were bad. I pulled and checked these RAMs and they were fine. This socket was replaced. Remember, it was a little wonked out. These 4 chips were causing misfires on the inputs. And is that it? Oh yeah, remember I've replaced this guy, even though we didn't need to, but that is a good way to isolate these 2 boards from speaking to each other. The game will still run, but you'll have no inputs and you'll have no sound. Because this thing, the CPU writes to the sound hardware, and it reads from the inputs through that guy. Cool. So, by golly, that's about it. All right, cool. I'm going to put some standoffs on this one and put a cable. Remember, it didn't come with a cable, so I'm going to send it with a cable, standoffs, and it is good to go. So as always, thanks for watching, and I hope you were able to pick something up from this. And we will see you all on the next Classic Arcade Repair. Bye for now. And as a footnote to the video, if anyone is wondering, the last time I played this game on camera, maybe the last 2 times I played this game on camera, I only had 1 speaker plugged in. I had already verified that both of the channels worked. The thing is I have to plug one of the channels directly in over here, and I can't bring my harness out as far, so I only had 1 channel plugged in. Towards the end, I had already verified, like I said, I already verified both channels worked fine. So before someone mentions in the comments that it was missing sounds at the end, that's why. So, all right, see you next time. And I know we said we were done, but I just wanted to show with the standoffs, it's got the proper 3/4 inch standoffs. New cable, even though it's an extremely long cable. If you can see it in there, it's all the way to right there. But whatever, it's all good. It works. It's new. And I just played and put a score on there. Just played a good game. Not a good game. I'm not good at this game, but yeah, that's it. Now we are complete. So thanks for watching, and as always, we will see you on the next Classic Arcade Repair. Bye for now.